Hello, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne, and I'm a Dutchie, and I want to learn about life and living in Australia by watching videos about life and living in Australia and reacting to, of course, because it's all the way down there, down under, and I'm afraid of flying. So the best way to learn more about life and living in Australia is watching these videos and getting feedback from real Aussies telling me how it really is in Australia. Not the kind of videos that you think, no. The real story behind the video. And for today, I have something planned for you to do something related to what I want to start with. And that is with this firm satellite image. What you're looking at is a fire that started last Friday in my region, in this case in Belgium. That is this one down here. And in Germany, both at the same time. And they are pretty nasty. I put it up in a separate window so we can take a look at it. So if I grab the window too, the smallest one is 1.5 times 1.5 kilometers, so 1.5 square kilometers, and this is mainly forest of this entire. Not only this, but this entire park you see is national protected park. So this is national forest. But this one of 11K times 5K is the more difficult one because it's on peat soil. So it's not even bush or trees, it is bush and peat soil beneath it. So the fireman can hardly reach it. And if you look and you see that this triangle is my home. So it's about 40K from my home. And I cycled and walked a lot of times in this region because it's a very beautiful region to walk and cycle in. So this started Friday after all the months of drought that we had with 25 to 30 degrees all over, day after day. So it should be foreseeable, but it couldn't. Until I looked this morning, and then I'm going to switch to the other video room, if I'm correct. Today. And today, both fires were almost gone. I believe there's some points in this. If the video will refresh something, there were several points. And that's because last night, we had for the first time in almost 10 or 11 weeks of 30 degrees and warmer, we had rain. 15 or 17 millimeters of rain I saw in the catcher outside. So we had 17 millimeters of rain today on Monday, from Monday to Thursday. So this fire is now extinguished thanks to the rain. Otherwise, you see, this is not a bush. This is not forest. This is peat ground. So peaty ground. So it's hard to do this. And I think, wow, just right in time, the rain came and put the fire out, because this is a hard part to put the fire out. A lot of firemen were working at it from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Belgium, from France, from England, all came over to help the Belgians with putting this fire out. And we think that there was a rain last night that put it all out. So But while I was watching this and thinking, how is it in the Aussies? So I went down and I was looking at the Aussies and I think, what the heck? All this red of fires in Indonesia, and I see a lot of red over here too. And I'm not sure if these are factories, because it's a very small fireplace, of are these real actual fires. I do not know. But there was a lot of fire going on in Australia while we're talking about the wet season. So I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys. You know your country way better than I do. So if this real, are these factories, are these mines, are these cities, is this a lot of Aussies throwing some shrimps on the barbie? I don't know. But that brought me to the video that I want to share with you today. And that's the one of, why was Black Saturday so deadly? Again, we're talking about bushfires. So let's dive into the video of Black Saturday.
Photograph. It's an interesting scene. Firefighters are setting up some hoses, which seems to be pretty standard operation. There doesn't seem to be too much urgency, at least from what we can glean from this frozen moment in time. The grass around their feet looks dry, it's been hot, and it looks like it's been hardened along the exposed sections of the track that have been worn down by vehicles over the years. Look as I zoom out, there seems to be a cloud in the distance. It's actually smoke. It blots out the sun, which is causing the orange hue. It's not just any smoke, however, but this is a very visual sign of approaching danger, a massive bushfire. But although not the largest ever experienced, the disaster would be the most deadly, with the highest death toll in Australian history. Thus, it was infamous enough to gain the name Black Saturday. My name is John and welcome to Plainly Difficult, and today we're looking at the 2009 Victoria bushfires.
2009 Victoria bushfires. Okay.
Today's video wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for my Patreon, YouTube and Ko-fi members. If you want early access to the videos on the channel, then you can from just £1 per month. And as always, the links will be in the pinned comment below.
Plainly difficult.
'Tis the season. This is the south-eastern Australian state of Victoria. It's the most densely populated part of the country, with around 7 million people calling it home. This puts it in second place for total population, but when compared to in size to the number one spot, New South Wales, you can see why the whole population density thing is much, much higher here. Now, Australia is known for everything living on the continent having a murderous intention. From spiders to kangaroos, everything wants you dead. And this even extends to the environment itself. Australia is naturally a very hot country. It's not just the sunburned capital of the world for nothing. I've looked at the temperature as I'm writing the script, and it's in the middle of the night over there, and they have the same temperature as here in London during the day. So, this heat
It's a Brit. Luckily, it's not an American. It's a Brit.
Understandably leads to, at the hottest times of the year, vast grass, shrub and forest areas to dry out, making them much more susceptible to igniting when presented with a flame. Bushfires are a common part of southeastern Australia, so much so that some plants have even evolved to actually benefit from fires in helping in reproduction. Now, the country isn't always on fire. Bushfires tend to follow the climatic seasons, and for Victoria, this is roughly between October and May. It does vary from year to year, however. Bushfires are caused by multiple reasons, both human and natural. On the human side, it's often accidental, but sometimes people make the most of the season for a bit of convenience arson. It's a good way to put in a dodgy insurance claim after having some things burned down. Over the years, there were a few very catastrophic bushfires. For example, Black Friday in 1939 or Red Tuesday in 1898, or the subject for today's video, Black Saturday 2009. The disaster. So the timeline for this video comes from the extensive Royal Commission that was established and published over multiple volumes after the disaster. And as always, the links will be in the pinned comment. Our story begins not on Black Saturday, but a week or so before, with the end of January 2009. The southeast of Australia is experiencing a record-breaking heatwave, which would eventually hit a peak of 48.8 degrees centigrade. But in the lead up to this,
48?
hit a peak of 48.8 degrees.
You don't need a Barbie to fry the shrimps. You can fry an egg outside. 48.
Centigrade. But in the lead up to this all-time high, the region was subjected to 2 weeks of persistent dry conditions. 3 consecutive days between the 28th and 30th of January hit over 43 degrees centigrade. Now I'm going to get out a map for this, as multiple fires would blaze in different areas around Victoria. On the 4th of February, a fire began in the Bunyip State Park. 2 days later, 123 hectares had burned. Interestingly, the originating area was near a walking trail, pointing to a human source. Containment lines were established to try and hem the fire in within the park, but as the heat started to soar, it would jump the defences. On the Friday, so the 6th of February, over 19,000 firefighting personnel were drafted and posted around some of the anticipated, excuse the pun, hotspots. The park fire would bog down fire response teams over the following days, including the fateful Black Saturday. But this was just the tip of the flaming iceberg, an iceberg with multiple burning tips. We are finally here. It is the morning of the 7th of February, Saturday, Black Saturday. At 5 in the morning, the containment lines around the Bunyip Park were jumped by the fire, causing firefighters having to retreat. In other areas around the state, more fires would spring up as the morning progressed and the heat rose. Close to lunchtime, the parts of the largest Black Saturday fire would begin. This was in Kilmore East, on a hill near the Saunders Road. The area had been experiencing high winds at an estimated 78 miles per hour. The fire would spread quickly over the following hours, spreading 31 miles southeast along a narrow fire front, the winds increasing the inferno's intensity. The burning ravaged into the Kinglake National Park and onto the populated area of St Andrews. Many houses burned at St Andrews, however the town centre was spared during a change in wind, but the changes would make the fire front wider, pushing it towards Kinglake to the northeast. This would cause damage to thousands of properties and take the largest number of lives, estimated to be around 100.
100. Were they surprised? Not evacuated? Not aware of any danger? 100. Caught in their sleep? Why?
Whilst this was burning, to the east, another fire broke out at 2:30 p.m. This was at the site of an abandoned timber mill called the Marindi Mill. The fire spread southeast, burning up the Narbethong route. Moderately populated Marysville was looking like it would be saved as the fire was moving alongside it, but the evening change in winds pushed the front towards the town. The winds had pushed the development of fires across a large area, each time pushing the firefighters back. At around the rough same time at 6 p.m, as the Morandini fire was reaching Marysville, another fire began in Beechworth. The Kilmore fire smoke plume was over 9 miles high as the evening burned into the night. Victims were sent to any nearby medical centre, with many victims being sent to hospitals across Melbourne. The fires continued to burn into the Sunday. The over 40 degrees centigrade highs had dropped significantly, but the dry ground and brush fueled the flames. The Kilmore and Morandini fires had merged, creating the Kinglake complex. By the Sunday afternoon, the Beechworth Kinglake complex.
Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 fires at the same time, give or take. Those 3 are in connection.
Bunyip State Park and Bendigo and a number of other fires were still raging on. Containment lines were made to try and hen in the fires. By Tuesday the 10th, spot fires left by the passing Kinglake complex formed another smaller complex, the Marinda or Yarra complex. So by the 10th, the following fires were still burning: the Beechworth, Kinglake, Bunyip State Park, Bendigo, Churchill and Dargo fires. The largest was still the Kinglake complex. During the firefighting efforts, an accurate death toll was very difficult to ascertain. The estimates fluctuated as damage was assessed, people were declared missing and bodies were found. The Kinglake complex was stopped at containment lines on Tuesday the 17th of February, 10 days after Black Saturday. The southern flank of the Kinglake fire burned southward towards Warburton. It wouldn't get contained until the 4th of March. Black Saturday had turned into a best part of a month-long disaster of tiring heat, fires, death and destruction. When looking at a map, you can see that the fires were worryingly close to Melbourne. And although not threatening the city proper, if I lived there, I would have been very concerned. All of the fires associated with Black Saturday burned a total area of 450,000 hectares. And even though mostly burning in rural areas, over 3.5 thousand structures were destroyed, with 2/3 of these being houses. Over 400 would have to be treated in hospital for various injuries, such as smoke inhalation, burns, and other escape-related injuries, such as broken bones, cuts, and bruises. Not to mention the mental toll on survivors and emergency workers for essentially experiencing a fiery nightmare. The death toll estimate rose to around 250, but was later revised down to 173, as forensic testing of remains identified missing persons, and after some of the initially reported missing persons were found alive and well. The deadliest fire was the Kinglake area, with over 120 confirmed dead, followed by Marysville. Area with 39 confirmed dead. 164 of the total death had died in the fire itself, with a few others being related to car crashes whilst trying to escape. Interestingly, the majority of the bodies were found inside their homes, which put the government's stay or defend or leave early policy into question.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Stay and defend or leave. Did these people decide to stay and defend their home, or weren't they properly warned of the real danger that's coming up to them, and they should have evacuated, or should they have be forced to evacuate and leaving home behind? I don't know. It's
Defenders used the fact that some had died trying to escape as evidence that forced evacuations could actually backfire. But let's get on to the next chapter of this video, see what the aftermath of the disaster was all about.
The aftermath, okay?
The aftermath. Now, Bloody Saturday would raise a lot of reappraising of the way that the state and the wider country dealt with bushfires. The policy of stay and defend or leave early was kept, even though many had properly prepared for the bushfires, but would still pay the ultimate price. A commission was created to investigate all aspects of the bushfires. It would run for 18 months between February 2009 and July 2010. It would call 434 witnesses, produce 67 recommendations, and cost around 90 million Australian dollars.
Yeah, give or take.
Another major criticism that arose from the Commission was the ineffective of the warning given to the public, as
I love not having to worry about fires. Okay.
noted in the August 2009 interim report. The methods of delivery of the warnings were also inadequate. Some techniques for raising awareness, such as the use of emergency warning signal to capture people's attention when warnings are broadcast, were not used. Similarly, other avenues for issuing and raising awareness of warnings were not encouraged, such as the use of local sirens or the use of commercial radio and television. The Commission found that the management of the Saturday the 7th wasn't great, with the Integrated Emergency Coordination Centre being overwhelmed by the afternoon, which apparently ended up missing updates in the Kilmore fire front. But what was the cause of the Black Saturday? Well, this important question would be delved into by the Royal Commission, and the causes would be many. However, the main and most deadly fire that originated in Kilmore would be very much in the plainly difficult wheelhouse. It was found that the Kilmore fire had originated on a hill, along where the Pentadine power line ran across a gully. It was found that the conductor cable, the power line, had failed due to stresses on a helical termination. Now, this is the point where the cable is wrapped around a loop in order to keep tension across the line. The loop has like a groove in it for the cable to run, and it allows for some movement of the cable. However, it was found that the cable was not on the loop part, instead getting jammed outside the loop and had pinched, and after enough movement over time had frayed and snapped. Gravity did its thing, and thus the cable fell laying on the ground, breaking the power line's conductor, which then tripped out the line. The power line was equipped with automatic circuit reclosers, which would try and re-energise the power line after it being tripped out. It reclosed 3 times before the current was stopped by eventually tripping to lockout. But at each re-energise of the power line, plasma at a temperature of around 5,000 degrees was shot out, which started the Kilmore East fire. This would be the most deadly fire on Black Saturday, as stated in the Australian Institute for Disaster Resilience. The Black Saturday bushfires unleashed the equivalent of 1,500 Hiroshima atomic bombs on Victoria, generating their own winds of up to 120 kilometres an hour, which snapped trees and created fireballs of exploding gases that surged 600 metres in 30 seconds.
6 and 30 seconds. Oh, man. You can't outrun that one.
The energy produced by the fires in just a few hours on February the 7th was enough to provide Victoria's industrial and domestic energy needs for a year. There would be other causes for the other fires, which would include arson and another power line failing. However, obviously most of the focus was on the main and most deadly one, which was the Kilmore East fire. Now, the Royal Commission would publish its report with a total of 67 recommendations, and this would revamp a great deal the state of Victoria's bushfire preparedness.
And did they actually do something with it? Because we're now 15 years further in the future. Is this being, those recommendations, are they active? Or is there now a better warning system against bushfires also?
It would quadruple the amount of controlled burning it would undertake to reduce potential fuel sources of fires.
Control burns, okay.
It also recommended electricity infrastructure be upgraded and, amongst other things, a comprehensive approach to evacuation be implemented. The disaster highlighted a number of areas of risk during bushfire season, and it is tragic that over 170 people were the price for the lessons. So this video has barely scratched the surface of the disaster, and I highly recommend looking at the Royal Commission report for all the detailed information. So that's my video on the Black Friday bushfire.
Wow. Oh, what's this?
It's going to be a 7 on my disaster scale, and this is what I've got for my root cause analysis card. Do you agree?
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I see a lot about the Black Summer. If I go back to, you see on this side, there's a lot of Black Summer, but these are all way too commercial for me to look at without getting a slap on my fingers for using content in in reaction video. So YouTube doesn't like this, but yeah, I saw a couple of them, but yeah, really, damn, so many people died. No matter, of course, this is called a Black Saturday. Okay. Outrunning a wildfire. Day from hell. It's sure. This was a greatly impact on the Austrians. Wow. Well, I'm glad that it's not there anymore. And all because I saw a fire near my house that is luckily been extinguished because of the rain of last night. And it was the first real rainfall that we had in 10 or 12 weeks. So the day temperature was only 21 degrees instead of 31 degrees last weekend. So I saw during the day after I came back from my walk, again, a heavy rainfall. So we're getting the rains back, yay! Which means that the rivers will fill up again and business on the rivers will continue. Well, if you like the video, then press like. And if you want to see more of my content, then this is a good place to start with. And otherwise, it would be really appreciated if you hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching and see you in the next Australian video.